Okay, Alexander, we have got, I guess, a definitive decision on Flynn. I guess it's over. Can we close the book on this? We have the judgment. Sullivan got crushed. Flynn is has been vindicated. I guess. I mean, is he free to go? What are the next steps? What's going on in the story? Because it's a big win for Flynn. It's a big loss for Sullivan. And I'm kind of curious to see what the next steps are for Flynn if he's going to be able to walk free now.
Right. Well, first of all, Sullivan wasn't crushed. Sullivan was completely obliterated. I mean, I was reading the judgment that was published by the majority in this order, this interim order of mandamus, and I have to say, I mean, first of all, it was brilliant. I mean, it was a most wonderfully argued and well constructed judgment by Judge Rao. But my God, I mean, it was an absolute demolition of Sullivan. It was an obliteration of Gleason. This amicus that Sullivan appointed, this retired judge who provided this extraordinary, sinister and dangerous advice, brief that we discussed a short while ago, and who was clearly being set up as a kind of alternative prosecutor. And very unusually, it also obliterated Judge Wilkins, who was the one judge in this three-judge panel who gave a dissenting view. Now, I wanted to say a few things about the procedure because, first of all, technically, it's not quite the end. This is an interim order by a small panel. So Sullivan could, if he was demented enough and crazy enough, he could ask for a rehearing by the entire Court of Appeals of the DC district. And if that goes against him, which it will, and I'll explain why it would in a moment, he can then go on and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. I have to say that after this judgment, if he dares do anything that reckless and stupid, then I do definitely think that his position as a judge, as a district judge of the United States, is going to be in jeopardy. So I cannot believe that he will do it. He has now been ordered by the Court of Appeals of the DC district to dismiss the case against Flynn. So, just to say a few things, you may recall that about a week ago, we did a video in which I said, that I was rather disappointed by the arguments that were happening at the debates that were happening in the Court of Appeals. It looked to me as if they were going to postpone a decision until after Sullivan had sentenced Flynn, and I thought that was weak and wrong. By the way, I noticed that no other judicial commentator in the United States seemed to agree with me, not even Jonathan Turley. They all thought that it was the right way to go. I didn't agree. And in the event, and to my huge relief, the Court of Appeals of the DC district has operated correctly. And they've said that what Sullivan is doing is completely wrong and absolutely inappropriate and clearly shows manifestations of prejudice against Flynn and wildly exceeds the proper powers that he has as a judge, and that he's acting in a way that takes away the executive's constitutional right to carry out prosecutions, and they've obliterated him. So I think overall, this must be the end. I think Sullivan would be absolutely reckless to go on appealing this now. And I will also say that this is a textbook example of why it is dangerous for commentators to look at oral argument in a court and assume necessarily what the decision is going to be, because I was expecting a weak decision. Instead of getting a weak decision, we got an incredibly strong and powerful and absolutely right one.
All right. There was one judge, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken,
Judge
that
Wilkins.
sided with Sullivan. Is that correct?
Yes, Yes, I mean he took the weak position that I was saying, which is wait for Sullivan to make a decision, and then decide whether he was right or wrong. So that was the position that he took. The
An Obama judge.
An Obama judge, absolutely, no question. I was appointed to an Obama judge, but I mean, interestingly, the majority and Judge Rao just, I mean, demolished that utterly. And they cited authority after authority. The major authority is a case called Fokker, Fokker. And one of the reasons why I understand why it would be most unwise for Sullivan to proceed with further appeals to the whole Court of Appeals of the DC District is that the judge who made the decision in Fokker is apparently the chair of the Court of Appeals of the DC District. So you would absolutely be certain on the reading of this to side with Rao and against Sullivan. So I think Sullivan would be acting utterly foolishly if he pressed on. But he's acted in a very bizarre way up to now. I really hope this is the end. I hope this is the end for Flynn, because my God, that man and his family have been through an absolute horror. I mean, we must not forget the way he's been treated. I hope it's the end of this case with a just and proper outcome, finally, with the legal system of the United States eventually doing right. And I hope it's also the end of the case for the United States also, because, I mean, this business has taken up far too much time and it's created a terrible impression. So I hope this is the end. I expect it is the end. It is a good judgment, far better than I expected. Judge Rao ought to be commended. I think if the Republicans, retain the presidency on the strength of this judgment, a Supreme Court position is entirely possible, because she is clearly a judge with that kind of ability. And, thank goodness it's ended, or hopefully has ended, like this.
Okay, you said that there's some more procedural stuff that needs to take place before this ends. What you wanted to elaborate on that, expand on that?
Right. I mean, on the assumption that there is no actual appeals. I mean, Sullivan now has been ordered by the Court of Appeals of the DC District to dismiss the case against Flynn. Now, he could disobey that order. If he disobeys that order, well, I assume that the next step would be that the Court of Appeals of the DC District takes the case back, reassigns it to another judge, orders, and that judge then dismisses it. I mean, I think that would be what would happen. Or alternatively, Flynn would appeal to the Court of Appeal of the DC District, and they would overrule Sullivan. So in Sullivan's own interest, he needs to stop, do what he's been ordered to do, and dismiss the case against Flynn. I would add that if he continues to play these bizarre legal games, it's what I said before, his position as a judge will start to come under question. It already is to some extent in this judgment. I mean, if he persists with this, he will put his whole position as a judge in grave jeopardy.
All right, well, I'm sure Sullivan is going to wait and see what his marching orders are from Obama and Pelosi and Schumer, not from this court. That's just my 2 cents. So I'm sure he's waiting for his orders as to what he's going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he continues further, if that's the orders that they give him. But this is a big,
it's a big win. I mean, interesting defense. I mean, I was only following orders. There we go. That would be
orders from Barack Obama and from Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
And Pelosi and all that.
I mean, if that happens, Alex, then as I said,
that's who's giving him his orders.
We have 2 parallel legal systems in the United States: the actual constitutional one and the shadow one, in which, as I said, Pelosi and Obama are the supreme judges of the United States. But all I will say to these people is, I mean, you're in a hole now. Stop digging. I mean, it can't end well. This really can't end well for you. This decision is unappealable, in my opinion. I mean, I think that if they press on, all that will happen is that more and more courts will find against them. And as I said, Sullivan will be forced out. I mean, he will be told eventually that your position as a judge, and I'm not talking about impeachment now, I'm talking about the superior courts, they will say you are acting in such a biased way, you cannot continue as a judge anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, this is a big win for Sidney Powell, big win for Michael Flynn. I think it's a big win for us because we've been calling this all along.
Absolutely.
And it's a huge defeat for the entire Russiagate hoax. I mean, this was a big leg of the entire Russiagate hoax, and it's now been 100%, 1,000% completely demolished. So that's a big win as well. Trump wins 2020. Is Flynn the NSA?
Oh yeah, I
Cool.
think so. I would love it to be again. I mean, I think that's absolutely the right pick actually for this. I mean, he should be brought back, definitely. Can I just say something? I mean, you mentioned Sidney Powell. I mean, she has been heroic. I mean, she has been, you know, an absolute brilliant defense attorney in this extraordinary case. I mean, it really is. She's done wonderfully for her client. She's turned it round. I mean, I can't commend her too highly for what she has done. It's just extraordinary. And you're absolutely right. Just to add, we at the Duran, we got it right. We got it right from the first day. Go all the way back to January 2017. See what we were writing then. We weren't yet a channel. We were just a site. See what we were writing then, you and I, and it's all there. We'd analyze it, we'd unpacked it. We'd said Flynn had done nothing wrong. We said that he'd been set up, and we were right. We were right in every particular, even when we were guessing. Our guesses have, without exception in this case, proved to be absolutely right. Remarkable, really.
Yeah. Well done, Michael Flynn. Well done, Sidney Powell. I got an email from a viewer who said Sidney Powell should take up the Assange case.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I absolutely agree. I wish she would actually. To be frank, I think she's exactly the kind of lawyer who could bring the energy and understanding and the passion. I'm going to say this. I don't want to say too much about the ongoing case, but the lawyers Assange has are very, very good lawyers. They know all the law, they know everything about that. The one thing they don't have, to the extent that perhaps is needed, is passion. The passion, the sense of anger, the sense of a terrible injustice being done, which this case, the Flynn case, required, and which the Assange case also requires, in my opinion. And she'd be absolutely the perfect fit for that sort of for that kind of case. I mean, without any question.
Yeah, we'll do a video on Assange.
We will day
or two, because there's some news coming out of
that
there as well.
is, absolutely.
But for now, this is good news. This is great news. Please, God, please, if you're listening to me, just let Trump win in November, just so I could have Flynn, so I could see everyone's faces as Flynn is appointed the NSA again.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would just be just to have Rachel Maddow and Hayes and Lemon and Anderson Cooper and Cuomo, just to see their faces.
Yes.
When Trump announces my NSA is Michael Flynn. Please. Please.
Yes, I agree. By the way, just to also say, I mean, I think it also shows why it was correct of Trump to let the legal processes run their course rather than pardon him, because he's been vindicated. Or read the judgment. I mean, you see how completely vindicated he is.
All right. Good news.
Good news. Unequivocally good news. It's good to be able to give some good news.
That's right. Took a while, but justice was finally done. Took a long while.